Hi everyone. Nous là encore l'autre samedi. Aujourd'hui, nous avons un sujet à cause de nous avons un invité spécial qui sorti Jamaïque. Nous allons obligé de continuer et conversation en anglais. So before we start, I'm Randall, and I'm a software engineer, like I usually introduce myself. And I have Lionel with me and Shawn. Shawn is our special guest today. So I'm gonna pass it to Lionel to introduce
Okay.
himself.
Hello, everybody, wherever you are. This is Lionel Pierre. I'm also a software engineer. And today I have the pleasure of bringing Shawn Stewart to our platform. He's going to be talking to us about some ideas that I hope you open your mind to let your thinking be changed, because this guy is a force. So Shawn is a college dropout, self-taught computer programmer who successfully made a career as an entrepreneur and inventor with 15 software patents, top coder in global corporations including CBS, Televisa, Fidelity Investments, LinkedIn, Ultimate Software, etc. He has some, I'm going to say, yeah, disruptive, definitely. He has some disruptive ideas about how to break into the technology industry by taking some non-conventional paths. And we're gonna explore some of these ideas. Personally, I've worked with Shawn, and I have to tell you, he's the type of individual, when you talk to him, you get a sense of a direction and a velocity. He's a guy who's somewhere, he's going somewhere, and he's willing to take you on board and share his visions as to why he's going there, why it's the right way to go. So I wanted to share some of that with you guys. Welcome, Shawn. Anything I missed that I need to add on?
No, thank you so much. That was really nice, Yonel and Randall. Great introduction. I wish I had, when I got started, more guidance, right, to help me navigate this path. And so I think I'm just happy to be here to kind of share my story, but more importantly, to help others kind of figure out where their opportunities are and how they can leverage their skills, their experiences to finally achieve the goals that they've set for themselves.
Thank you. Great having you on, and this is going to be a fun hour. First, as you know, Shawn, this episode is on the TIC IET platform, and a lot of our audience is either Haitian American or interested in Haiti somewhere or another. So I'm going to have to connect you to that audience.
Good.
Do you know about Haiti? Have you had any experiences with Haiti, around Haiti? Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, and I know quite a bit about Haiti. I have 3 children who are all half Haitian. A little bit about myself. I'm Jamaican, and while I was working through getting my citizenship in the United States, I had a lot of great ideas that I wanted to implement, and looking for a really good marketplace that was similar to Jamaica in many ways. But Haiti has about 10 times the population of Jamaica. So a really good place to test out a lot of really great ideas. I love the Haitian people's entrepreneurial spirit, very welcoming. My own company, Iritech Corporation, I actually started it in Haiti first, Iritech SA. And that's where I really got my start to test out some crazy ideas with a lot of really great participants in Haiti. So I know quite a bit. I did the booking system for the Olafson Hotel. I also built a reservation system for Tropical Airways. That company is no longer around. And I've had a number of collaborative partnerships with other individual Haitians as well as different Haitian organizations within the country. So I have not yet been to the. I remember when I think it's the Tech in Haiti conference got started.
Yes.
I was dying to go. I have not gone yet, but there have been a ton of tech conferences in Haiti at like the Caribbean Hotel and a few other places that I've been able to participate in the past. But I can see that there's a groundswell of ideas and businesses getting started. So at some point in the future, I'd love to get back into it and participate a little bit more.
Excellent. So as you guys can see, this guy doesn't think like everyone. How many of us have a SA in Haiti? I know I don't. So he's looking, as he evolves, he's always looking for opportunities, and that perspective is valuable to a lot of individuals who maybe have their noses to the grindstone, and it's easy to focus on the details and lose sight of the big picture. So Shawn is here to help us align and inspire us. All right. So Shawn, let's start with the questions. You are a college dropout. All right. And now you are in a career, a very nice career as an engineering leader. So you went from self-taught developer to leading developers now, often developers with advanced degrees. So your reality, you have an interesting take on the spectrum. How do you value a college degree versus boot camp versus self-taught when you come across these potential characters to add to your teams and leverage?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. Bear with me for a little bit. I'm going to take a non-conventional path in this answer here. I look around, my place, and what I see is I see a lot of self-help books. I see a lot of learn this programming language or this technology in 30 days or how many number of days or whatever, right? There's tons of books like that. And if you look across just the, whether it be the non-traditional educational landscape, you're going to find a lot of books and boot camps and similar things of the nature. It's a huge business, right? And I think the fundamental thing that I have an issue with, whether it's using those tools or going through the school system, is that in many ways, there's this assumption that there is a single pathway and we have to kind of move through that pathway. There may be some shortcuts that kind of get you around some things, but it's the same pathway. And what I want to encourage people to do is the path I took, while I may have used some of these tools, the path I took is more like, I would look at it as like, pardon me for being a bit facetious here, but John the Baptist, right? I'm not Jesus, I'm looking for Jesus. or Morpheus, right?
Okay.
Looking for the one. And the point I'm making here is, right, I'm trying to find a way to fit my experiences. When I got started, I was trying to find a way to fit my experiences into a goal. How do I become a software engineer? Why did I want to become a software engineer? Because I wanted to make more money, because I wanted to, I didn't have the money to go to school. I didn't have the opportunities some people did. So I wanted to find a way to get into that industry so I can make money. What I've learned by going through this process is that I fell in love with the art form. And I call it an art form because it's not a skill. It's really, if we think about it as an art form, if we think about it in terms of what we can do to influence and drive, instead of how do I fit into this and become an engineer, I think we're going to be a lot more productive, and I think we're going to be a lot more successful. So what I realized pretty quickly, right, is that when I would look at problems, I looked at them completely differently. And whenever I tried to solve these problems using the conventional ways, I felt like I was beating my head against the wall. So to go back to your previous question, we do have to, when we get into these interviews, right, there's two pieces that we have to figure out. We have to understand, how do we sell our value to other people by way of the interview, right? How do I sell my value to be productive in your organization so that I can make money, right? And even if I'm building my business, how do I sell my value to my clients so that I can make money, right? And show the productivity and the value of whatever it is that I have to offer. There's that. So we need to be able to speak the language. We need to understand when we're asked certain questions, how to respond. We need to be able to give the answer that other folks are looking for. But more importantly, more fundamentally, I think we need to fall in love and understand systematically what is actually going on, not through somebody's book, somebody's program, boot camp. We'll do those things so we can learn the language and know how to speak. But we need to find a way to deeply understand it. It's sort of like music, right? When our people pick up a musical instrument, I don't know that we're reading sheet music, right? Or going through this classical learning phase. We find a way to involve ourselves into the music and learn and adapt and improvise. And I want to encourage people to take a two-sided approach to this and say, okay, I'm gonna go to the boot camp because that's what I can afford, and it's a great way to accelerate myself to a point. I'm gonna pick up the book and read so that I can learn independently and find a way to accelerate myself to a certain point. I'm going to go to the university because it's going to allow me to network and learn the information. And later on, when I'm having the conversation, I'm going to have the conversation with different types of people because that's purchasing a ticket for me to a different audience. But more fundamentally, regardless of which choice I choose, I would like to encourage all of us to fall in love and see what we can do to influence the discipline.
That's a very, very interesting answer there. And you brought two things to the surface while you were talking that I've been harping on ever since I came into technology. That thing that we bring, that thing that is ourselves, our imagination, our ingenuity, experience, it is so sharp in the Haitian population, as you know, because of growing up within restrictions. So many things are lacking. So you're always using the creativity muscle. You're always adapting. And the environment forces you to really rely on thinking outside of the box. And so when I fell into technology, I kept looking back to Haiti saying, oh man, when we get a crack at this, we're going to do some things. And I love how, Shawn, you say, come in not with an approach of how do I chop myself into the square box of a software engineer, but just fit in the door and then be yourself inside that industry and 100%. Be willing to push it to the next level. That's beautiful. I hope you guys are you're also appreciating. Do you have any if you Ashley, as you come in, if you have any questions, any interjections, just jump in. We're going to keep this very conversational. So, very interesting. Now, as the individual prepares themselves, whether by being self-taught, there are even courses you can take just to pass interviews, as far as those things are concerned, just to get their foot in the door. Would you have any set or list, a short list of skills that are necessary? Because this all happens within a framework, corporate America. So what kind of skills, either soft skills or tech skills or other, do you feel that an individual needs to arm themselves with in order to have better chances of making an impact when they do get in the door?
You have amazing questions, this is a fantastic question. Okay, so I love that question because it really hits to the core of what the recipe for success really looks like in this business, right? And a big part of it is the number one thing, right, is not really, if you want to become a short, what I would call a short order cook, right? Like someone who, hey, go ahead and make this thing for me. Then study tech, study the languages, pick the ones that most people use. If you want to be on the back end, it's probably going to be Java, right? If you're going to do game development, it's going to be C, C++. On the back end, it might be Java, C#, and then on the front end, JavaScript for sure, React, Angular, you name it. Study that and you'll get a fantastic job, right? And you will be on that assembly line and you could do that job for a very long time. If you have aspirations to go beyond that, it's super important that you learn business. And when I say business, I don't mean it in the sense of understanding business fundamentals, What I mean is being able to go in and understand what is the value of the thing that I'm creating. So I've negotiated a salary and I'm getting paid. How am I being paid? Understand that, right? This venture that I'm investing in, because it's all an investment. How are they making their money? How does my contribution help towards that end goal? And in some cases, maybe it's a startup, right? And the value hasn't been realized yet because we're operating on a budget that maybe is funded from, raising capital, and we're hoping to get to a point in the future where we'll finally be able to realize the profitability that we're after, right? Understand that fundamentally. Understand what your contribution, the ratio of your contribution to that final outcome is. And if you could do that, and I'm talking about in the most nuanced way. So for example, if I developed a feature, maybe it's just a button, right, on a web page that allows some transaction to happen, understand what that means. And if I understand what that means from a value perspective, I will understand how much time do I need to spend on this? How good does this need to be? How do I communicate this back to my peers, to my managers? How do I communicate it to my customers? And you will unlock in yourself a really deep learning that you can take anywhere. And that will live with you regardless of what your position is. So as you move through roles, this is really kind of like the ladder that allows you to continue to climb up. I know that it doesn't sound as specific as some folks may want to hear, right? I think some folks maybe want to hear step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? But really, it's really simple. If you understand the value of that you bring, and in order to understand the value, you have to understand what you're investing in, then that's going to unlock everything.
It sounds like what you're saying is reach out, get a firm grasp of the big picture, wherever it is you're operating, and then get a firm grasp of how you fit, where you fit in that big picture. And you also hit a key word: communicate. You said once you realize these things, you talked about communicating them to either your client or your manager or your boss or whatever, because so you're talking about a mix of soft skills, communication. You could be the greatest engineer. If your personality isn't right and your communication skills aren't right, you're not going to advance as much as you need to. So from what I'm hearing, you're saying it's going to take a mix of people skills and another set of skills, which is situational awareness from a maybe global corporation point of view. So these are not things you're going to learn in books at all.
Totally. And there are some people who are just not very good communicators, and that's okay. But I want us to broaden the concept of communication. And communication is really just raising awareness outside of yourself, right? For some people, I've seen some people who are just not great at documenting, writing a document, sending an email, or maybe even speaking to people. But they can put a dashboard together that will show you the trajectory of the value that they're adding, right? So there are a number of ways to, illustrate the value that you're creating so that you understand. But the most important thing is that you have to understand it for yourself. And I'm talking about be really dedicated about this, because a lot of times I see people have fantastic ideas about businesses, products that they'd like to create themselves and launch, but aren't really connected into understanding what the value exchange is for this idea. And that's where things kind of fall apart. Not because the idea isn't fantastic. It probably is if you were funding it yourself. But if your objective is to, retrieve some value back by way of maybe it's engagement from your audience, maybe it's dollars from selling it or selling a subscription or ads or what have you. If you don't understand in great detail what that exchange is, you're missing out on why you're doing all of this in the first place.
Excellent inputs as usual. Thank you. Ashley, it looked like you had something to add at a moment.
No, yeah. Definitely touches the point. So I'm trying to understand, make sure I'm framing the context of the conversation right, just so I don't add something that just spins it completely into another tangent. But I absolutely agree in terms of communication. Like as you go up the ladder as an engineer, like your skills become less on the technical aspects because there's tons of other people that you're collaborating with that has that technical capacity, right? Being able to identify what that vision is and kind of like get multiple different types of people, different types of parties together, or whether you have to advocate, pitch for something, and kind of like showcase, hey, here's why this is important, whether it's from a issue of technical debt or overall how this direction fits within this area of the product, and that ties into the strategy of the company, how it leads to that dollar value. That touches on the importance, yeah, of course, of being able to communicate those things well, but a lot on that interdisciplinary kind of like skills, right? Like you mentioned, understanding a little bit about finance, how businesses operates, sort of how to say, all right, cool, here's X effort, and how does that equate to X dollar amount? Now, I'm trying to be also very concise here. Another important piece of that you guys mentioned is the type of audiences that are that you have to communicate, right? So dashboards works for very analytical and technical audiences, but you have product and different levels of leaderships, and also from talking to the leaders, right? You start to also see a lot of like the different types of information that they really care about, and that level of perspective that they're really working with all day, and that's something that's difficult, like you said, to read, but from a lot of conversation and seeing how other people see things helps you tailor that conversation for. Well, you guys might notice, but like from HBDI, right? How it tells you the way people perceive and process information also influences how you got to communicate to it.
Exactly.
So whether a person's an emotional, analytical, procedural or a creative person, that's one way of forming that conversation, but also their responsibilities and their context is also plays into it. So definitely like just adding those points and then kind of like trying to add some more seasoning to make sure like much bigger picture.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, so it sounds like the people skills, the context switching, the ability, of course, that it all relies on that situational awareness, though, Shawn, to be in a room and know, okay, what's the vocabulary here? How do I communicate what I want to happen to this individual in the language that fits what they worry about every day versus I'm talking to them and they go, this is just technical jargon. I'm lost. So yeah. Randall, anything?
I'm actually trying to, grasp the whole thing and apply it to my career and everything because I've been in technology for so long. Even in the U.S., it's been like 25 years, and kind of like Shawn mentioned that a little bit. I've always been trying to find out, okay, do I just want to keep being an engineer, or do I want to kind of switch to management? And then I'm always like, I'm not exactly kind of like attracted to that. Because in some ways I see it like I'm babysitting people, and I don't like to keep telling people, okay, did you do it yet? When is it gonna be done? So that's not totally part of my personality. I'm too relaxed, too laid back, too, laissez-faire kind of person. So I never try to venture in that domain. But at the same time, I'm getting older. So, the whole software engineering thing, it's kind of like sometimes I see like the modeling industry, people just see you and it's like, I want that kid. He's a 21-year-old, he's probably up all night coding, he doesn't have a wife, things like that. So those biases are there if I'm gonna be going out there to look for a new job. So it's a balance I haven't been able to figure out and decide, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. But lucky for me, I kind of find wherever I actually work, it's very easy for people to actually like me, have conversation, and I don't have real issues, writing documents and communicating ideas and stuff like that. So it's like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I go this way? Not go that way? But I enjoy it a lot being an engineer because getting into technology in the first place is because I fantasized about being a hacker. So I'm like, okay, I want to do the database, I want to do the front end, I want to do the back end, I want to do everything. Um, so it's a balance I haven't been able to find, and I can't say I'm stalled, with my career. But right now, I'm a software engineer, level 3, which is like an individual contributor. Do I want to go to 4 to actually be a lead, or 5 to be a principal? So I'm looking at the whole kind of spectrum, and until retirement. So I'm like, okay, I need to make a decision. Do I?
Interesting.
On top of it too, I would like to be an entrepreneur. I want to start a business. I want to help in that sense as well. So it's kind of like mentally, I'm all over the place.
So that's
You did a conversation with Shawn.
Yeah,
let me resume real quick before you take it, Shawn. So we're talking 25 years plus of experience, and he's feeling a certain ceiling. So he's looking at the young bucks coming up under him, running like 36 hours of code on a Diet Coke, right?
Right.
And he's like, man, I don't want to compete with that. But then he's looking at the managers above him, not attacking anybody, and being like, I don't want to micromanage people either. But I love this stuff, and I have some ideas. I have products I want to push out. So Shawn, what do you have for him at this? And just let me add that this is an above average engineer. This guy is a badass.
Yeah.
So what do you tell him, Shawn?
Yeah, I have a fantastic answer for you. I think it's fantastic anyway. You tell me. But I think there's perpetual growth in both areas, whether it's through management or through the IC. We have this idea that as an IC, I hit a point, and that theoretical point, right, tends to be what the company establishes as the level, right? Oh, so you're at L3, maybe L4 is the top, and then you're done. And at that point, you have to deal with people. That's the company's process. And they do that for budgetary reasons and a number of other reasons, right? But there's perpetual growth. There's a guy who works at Gusto. I work at Gusto now. Kent Beck. Kent Beck wrote, he's the creator of extreme programming. This guy is a legend, and his title is programmer, right? But clearly Kent Beck is a very different type of programmer. So I want to give you an analogy so I can help you understand, in my opinion, right, where I think your opportunity is. Back during the Renaissance, right, there were 2 great artists. There was a guy by the name of Michelangelo and another guy by the name of Bernini. And Bernini was just really productive. This guy would do sculptures, he would do buildings, he would do paintings. I mean, he could run circles around Michelangelo, right? Like you needed a cathedral put up, Bernini could knock it out, right? And in fact, when you go through the various, Renaissance cities like Florence, for example, and Rome and what have you, you'll see a lot of Bernini's work. In fact, you're not going to see a lot of Michelangelo's work. But the thing about Michelangelo is, whenever Michelangelo touched something, he moved art forward. And so the opportunity for you, right, is not about how you will be, productive into perpetuity, right? I remember, for example, when I came home after I had my kids, and I had a frank conversation with my boss, and I said, we need to have a conversation about what success will look like now, because it's never going to look like what it did before, right? So we're going to reframe this, right, and set new success criteria. And so what I would say to you is, abandon whatever the company is trying to tell you, right? Instead, you have this breadth of knowledge and experience that you can tap into. How do I become Michelangelo at this point, right? Where do I go really, really, really deep and ignore the rest of the stuff? Because you're going to have Bernini's forever.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That reminds me of pretty much the whole spirit of that. Essentially, the book, The Effective Engineer, where like it's impact, not output.
Right.
At that point. But going back to a little bit like how to get to kind of like that part, either as a person that doesn't have that massive like experience, because like we want to reduce that time to being impactful, right? So the best way as engineers, systems, setting up systems in place. That's something that I do to account for a lot of my weaker areas, right? I'm not the best communicator, right? But I have a lot of strategies that I'm like, all right, if I need to communicate these things, I know, here are templates of different types of documents, right? Architectural decision records, like, RFCs, proposals that I can just follow and send it to the right type of people to communicate. But beyond that, right, for that perpetual growth, how to identify what the next thing to work on for you to move on. The way that I do is I set up kind of like my social system. And you can also do the same thing. I'm sure one tailored more towards my career. So how do I ensure that I'm kind of like, always getting to that focused on that next thing that can help me grow more as an engineer or as a person or as a contributor or person within the field, right? And it's like setting up these the support system, which are kind of like gathering your allies, your mentors, and sponsors. And it's important to get all three because like the biggest spurt of growth that I've had has been in the past 2 years is when I actually put all these three together, right? So your allies are the people that support will vouch for you when you're not there in the room. They'll speak out and support for you, right? But your mentors, we all know what mentors are, right? We're always saying, hey, get a mentor, and that is valuable, right? The mentor can help you see the things that you're not seeing and what to focus on, how to focus on it, and just the more regular cadence. A sponsor is that person that's like heavily invested into your growth, right? And the key thing is like as you grow effective or become really good in one particular area, you might just either get to the point where your mentor is now your peer or you're just a friend at that point. You still communicate, but you have a new next thing to work on, which is that mentor is not their expertise, right? So a sponsor can be that person to help you identify who that next mentor is, or you just, you transition from mentor to mentor. But having these three support systems really help capture kind of like your blind spots, which is kind of like the most important things. Like I've been reading a book called, wow, it's my favorite book now, but like essentially is like it's called The Great Mental Models. Essentially what it does is like, hey, here are the different, disciplines and how the frameworks of how they think, whether as an engineer, as a scientist, as a psychologist, but here's like the essence of that thinking approach, and here's how to apply it. And essentially that's what we're doing very much here, but rather than you gaining the experience, you're deferring that to someone else to help you point and see these things and learn it. Right? So something that will take maybe 3, 4, 5 years could probably shorten into 1.5 years or 2. That's one thing. Another big thing that I've been doing over the past, also 2 years, has been treating kind of like yourself or as your life kind of like very similar to how you operate a startup or a company. So having those, bi-weekly retrospectives. Hey, over the past 2 weeks, not for your work, but overall for the things that you want to do, things that you want to accomplish in your life, have you done anything that kind of like keeps you away from getting there? No problem, but every 2 weeks might be too crazy. You can do that every month and then kind of do a quarterly review, right? Hey, here is the quarterly review of Ash and how has that quarter looked, or the past 3 months looked? And are you on track to getting where you want to go, or do you feel your growth is keeping up to what you want to do? And then the whole purpose of it is to help you, keep this stuff in front of mind constantly, so you can constantly ask questions, so that when the opportunity, comes up, you can easily identify as like, oh, right, 2 months ago I did my quarter review. I really need to focus on this. This is something I need to jump on now, as opposed to, waiting and missing these things. So those are kind of like my, systems to help along with that. Like I said, it's because you can communicate with other people, but those are happy hours and one-off chats. You need something consistent over time to keep that growth, happening over time. But I'm always looking for ways to improve it. So if y'all got systems, please share it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley. You touched on a couple of things. First, to Randall, I know what Shawn said is going to send you thinking. So whatever you land on, call me, because I want to be in on it because it's going to be good. I mean, you have around you, just in the community, Randall is responsible and great almost alone for Tech Haiti and this platform, and he's gathered people around him like-minded. So you have the network. It's a question of how do you leverage it? How do you organize it? What's the rhythm that you set for these meetings? And I guarantee you're not the only one at that conundrum of, okay, I've had this experience. Where do I go next? There's this push and that push. So I feel leverage that network. Ashley touched on it as well, leveraging the network and keeping your eye on the prize. This is my goal. And each step I take, revisit, okay, is that a step in the right direction, and so on and so forth. Shawn, from a more deliberate approach, okay, we're following your advice, we're learning what we need to do to pass the interviews, to jump into the things, and we're making our presences felt. What advice would you have toward this, like, deliberate networking? Not just, hey, this is an interesting face, let me go strike up a conversation, but how do you motivate that push for networking in order to continue that growth? And I mean, Ashley talked about mentors, sponsors, and allies. I'm sure you have more for that. What's your touch on networking?
Yeah, totally. That's you come with the fire questions every single time. That's a really good one. The way I would kind of like the analogy I would use is how do I find the doors to knock on, right? And I want to knock on the doors where people are behind that door that are going to open it. And then also, because the networking goes two ways, right? It's who am I going to keep the door open for, right? And so I look at networking in those two ways. When I got started, I initially started I created a computer business where I was building computers for people. I would go hang out at Best Buy and someone would come by to buy a computer and I'd say, hey, listen, I could sell you the same computer for a little bit less. I'll go build it for you. And they would take a chance on this kid. And I built a business that way. But unfortunately, what ended up happening is I started realizing support costs, for example. It would take me a couple hours to build a computer, right? And I would make about, $200, $250 profit. But then the same customer would call me up and say, hey, I got a virus. And I'd spend 4 hours debugging their virus and probably get $50 off that, right? Yeah. So I wanted to be building computers, not fixing viruses. Right. So that's how I got into software. Anyway, the thing about it is, in order to build a software career, I use LinkedIn quite a bit. And it's really interesting that I ended up working at LinkedIn because I just believe in the platform so much. I would seek out the people that aligned with the path that I was heading down, right? And I would look at the folks, hey, Lionel has the job I would like. Where did Lionel study? Where did he go to school? Who does Lionel know? And from that, I would then try to create this pathway for myself. Clearly, I'm not going to follow your path, but I would pull information from these different platforms and figure out where I needed to be. And so I would deliberately and directly reach out, whether it be in the organizations I worked for, whether it be meetups in my community, and I would have that conversation. Exactly, to what Ashley pointed out earlier, I would like you to be my mentor. I am looking for a sponsor. I would like to go here. Who can help me, right? Here's what I've done. You're not going to waste your time with me, right? I'm here to work. And then I would also find people who had the same work ethic and drive. The way this really works, I learned quite a bit about managing up. And one of the things I realized about weaknesses is a lot of times you get feedback about your weakness and you think that, oh my goodness, I'm already weak. I already have this weakness. I have to go in a cave and go figure it out on my own and then hopefully come back stronger. What I learned is, why don't I hook my manager on my weakness? Hey, boss, I don't know how to communicate. Can you help me with that? Now he's on the hook for my success, right? And we're working together now. It's not just my problem anymore. It's our problem. And by way of connecting yourself with mentors and people who can lift you up, you're doing two sets of activities, right? You're helping yourself, but you're also helping them, right? By way of supporting their leadership. And so you realize that as a part of that, your networking has to also include people that you're going to bring up too. And over time, you're going to see these people move to different organizations and different companies, and it's going to create a tremendous amount of opportunity. If you want to find a way, right, to use a single seed and plant an entire, huge, field, networking is the easiest way to do it. Make friends. Make sure that these friendships are value-based, right? Make sure that there is good exchange. Make sure that you're authentic. Make sure that you are in the business of not just seeking help, but giving help as well. And be consistent in everything that you do.
Yeah, that's true.
So, anyone else want to chime in on that? The networking techniques?
Yes. So even more how to be more specific on it. Exactly what Shawn was mentioning, I was doing. Do your homework, right? Because you have to do your homework in order to identify the person that is the right fit for you. That's also something that's key, right? Kind of learning a little bit more about their personality takes, just like work ethic, whatnot. You have to do your homework. And that's where a little bit I get into like my funny mode, where essentially, if you think about hacking, it's the same thing of doing social engineering. I got really obsessed about doing social engineering when I was in college to help me get, free hookups, free food, extra cookies when I'm ordering my Subways. There's small basic tactics that you can do, but they yield so much and that connections over a long time. But essentially, yeah, if I knew a person I was trying to do it, I would create almost like a target package, right? Information about this person, and what this really is information about this person to identify, is this the right person for me to engage? And if so, what is the best ways for me to, one, help or bring something to the table while also identifying what exactly it is that this person can give me? Because if you go to a mentor or sponsor and say, hey, here's, things that help that I need, but like if you say, hey, here is the value proposition, what I can do, that helps so much of that dynamics, and you're able to just be more proactive. If it doesn't work, no problem. You have a list of other people that you can then engage. So, fun fact, a little bit of how I got contact with Lionel is because I was doing very much the same thing for when I was doing Dev Haiti started Dev Haiti tour. I wanted to get involved in Haiti's tech scene, but I don't know what Haiti's tech scene looked like. No problem. Let me create my target package, right? Let me understand the key players, let me identify all these actors, and create a map of that dynamic. That's exactly what I did for that particular cause. But like, if you can apply that to people for different types of things that you're trying to do. So your homework is key, but definitely don't be afraid to be aggressive and tactical about it. Social engineering techniques. If you're not too crazy about approaching someone, you can learn about ways to make that less nervous for you of an engagement for you.
Yeah, I agree. And if I could add to that too, I think you're 100% spot on. Sometimes if you're having a hard time locking down that mentor, that's a good opportunity to actually look behind you and see who I can help. Because building up your own networking group based on the people that you can help is a fantastic way to go into those conversations, not by yourself, right? Because a lot of times people will find tons of people out there asking for help. But if I'm coming in and I've got a bunch of people I'm helping, I have a completely different profile than someone who's just there, potentially for themselves, right?
So you guys are really talking about networking. It's almost like farming. This is agriculture. You are investing, you are choosing the right plot of land, and then you're putting thought into which fertilizer and which seed. This individual opens the door to this and that, and what do they need? And do I have that? So you could imagine indirect networking where I need to get to this individual, but I need that individual in my side first before I get to this other individual. So, and the beauty of these things, if you treat each relationship with respect and you keep that value flowing back and forth, those relationships continue forever. And when you get to the next situation, you might go, oh, whoa, I already know so and so. Yo, this is, so yeah, definitely. And we do have a tendency that I'm in many of these networks, like Randall's network, the networks I made before in Haiti, all about gathering, all these Haitians in tech. We're gonna solve poverty with technology, and oh, there's a bunch of crazy people out there like myself, and we gather and we come together and we're pushing it and we continue to tinker at it. So it's great to see. Look at what we're doing right now. This is, none of us got paid. Every time I have a conversation with Shawn, I think, man, we need to sell a book. We need to get Shawn out there, because you hang up the phone and it's never, let me go do this. It's always like, damn, man, okay, all right, let me see. So I'm giving you guys.
No, I appreciate that. I wanted to tack on one last thing, and this is just kind of like a testimonial for myself, right? The networking thing is so powerful, and I really encourage people to invest in it, right? Like, be intentional, network, and be in it to help people also. But the last time I ever filled out a job application, I think, was 2004, when I applied to CBS. I've never had to fill out a job application since. I don't even know what you put on a job application. In fact, in this last role that I got, my boss, when he hired me, he said, I don't even know what's on your resume. Do you even have a resume? So, it is extremely, extremely important that in order to show the impact that you can make on this industry, you help people and you be in a position to say, hey, I'm looking for help, and be intentional, serious, and committed to it.
Thank you. I want to touch on another topic, because it seemed with Facebook, Google, Twitter, it's always on an engineer's mind. Anybody learning technology, whether they're in Corfu or they're in New York or they're in Sudan, everybody has that Mark Zuckerberg in their head. They're going to come out with the next thing that's just gonna, billions dollars, so the entrepreneurial side, and I want to touch back on the pressures that Randall voiced earlier. You reach a certain point in tech and it's almost like, okay, do you want to be a manager? Do you want to be a team lead? Because whatever. There's almost a pressure of, I know how to code. I did Hello World. Where is my product? Where is my app? I need to have something out there that's just generating passive income by the boatloads. So Shawn, I have some questions for you about that, as far as coming into tech and that first fork in the road, or maybe I've been in tech for a while and that fork in the road keeps presenting itself. Do I go for the safe 9-to-5 employment? If I have a family, maybe it's a hard choice. I either do one of them, or I do the startup, I do the bootstrapping, I do the getting money. So I have the skill set, I can go both ways. How would you advise somebody on navigating that crossroad? What factors should they consider, before they jump on one side or the other? And then we can go into more details.
Yeah, great question. I think the tech world mirrors real life. I remember one time, believe it or not, I created a female accessories business, right? Where I was selling accessories for women, $5 to $10, right? And I literally, for those of you in South Florida, I went to the swap shop where I would pay for a parking spot. I think I paid maybe $20 for the day. I backed in my truck. I opened up the back of my truck and I displayed all my stuff. And I talked to the people who came to the swap shop and I sold it, right? The advice I always give people is, if you know how to get up, go out into the street and go make $5, right? By yourself. You will know how to go make $10. and $20 and eventually $100. And if that appeals to you, if that feels like something that you can do, that you understand and you can do, right? I buy an accessory for $2 and I sell it for $5. And if that appeals to you, you're an entrepreneur. And you should go survey whatever this digital product that you're selling, no different than a physical product, right? And go after the market in the exact same way. If you're a player that needs to be a part of a team, right? Assess that. Do I know how to find the other players that know how to put this whole thing together? There's some of us, selling at the swap shop is completely different than building out something that requires, if you want to go to the, launch satellites into orbit, the swap shop tactics aren't going to work, right? You need a lot of collaboration. You need to bring people in. You need funding. If you're someone who knows how to play within a team, right, you have to be able to identify how teamwork works. Who are the players to create this whole organization? And I think it's incumbent on everyone to figure that part out. In some cases, you could be someone who says, Elon Musk has made a fantastic series of wins through his ability to have an idea and then find the people who can actually build it, right? So if we're able to assess our own abilities and understand what a product means, what is the value this product is creating, understand product market fit. Is there a market out there that will purchase this thing for the price that I think it's worth? Then the next step is to build that business. And you're either building that business by yourself with a small group of people, or you're joining a larger organization, right? Based on the skills that you have and what you contribute. If I'm a data scientist, I don't know that I'm creating something on my own, but I could certainly contribute with a larger group that has some really brilliant people who have the vision about a product that I think I could contribute to. Or I'm going to go work in a corporation that already has the infrastructure and the groundwork laid that allows me to create something at a global scale that I would never be able to do through the process of initial ideation, raising funds, recruiting and hiring a team, building out, which would just take forever to do.
Interesting. Thank you. What about, you mentioned, of course, the idea. Everybody has the idea. Whenever you meet somebody, baby shower, wedding reception, hey, what do you do? I'm a software engineer. Oh, I have an idea. It's going to do this. It's the next Facebook. It's that. Define for us, please, Shawn, the idea. When is it more than just, oh man, this is, yeah, I'm gonna be, you're counting dollars. You haven't written anything yet. Like what is serious enough to say, okay, let's start thinking about, does this get funded? We're in the tech field, so how do you measure something? What's your litmus test?
Yeah, I go back to value. Value is how you determine if an idea is an idea versus maybe a wish or imagination, right? Value is when you have something that you could exchange for something else that you need, right? And for that could be a white paper. Maybe I sat down and I did the research and I wrote up, here's the plan of how we're going to do this. An idea isn't the conversation around the ideation. It's not about hey, you know what? It would be great if we could time travel. The idea is when I sat down and I worked out the math, right? And I figured out how the physics works, what materials I need to make this happen, right? And then I have a plan and I could go to someone and say, we could build this. I figured it out. That's the idea. Or I'd like to create a rideshare app, and I built out this prototype and I tested out with my car and my friend's car. This could work. That's the idea. But if there's no value that I can exchange that allows someone else to, materially see the idea that they can invest in, it's not an idea. And I think a lot of times people only go so far as imagining something, and there's no work behind it that really cements down both the feasibility and the utility of whatever the concept is. Because at that point, someone else is going to come and outwork you, and they're going to bring it to life. The idea is only as good as how close it is to being brought to existence, in my opinion.
That makes me think of the concept Yoda. People keep talking about your own data. So it's not just do you have the prototype or do you have the mock-up built? It's how many users do you have some data? Can you show me what's the trend? And so as the audience here is mostly software engineers or aspiring software engineers that are going to be one way or another, data backend, machine learning, whatever. We're all in this tech industry, and we all want to build stuff. So, man, the group, what's the group on WhatsApp? Expel Online. The ideas that you see flying through there, my goodness, they're amazing, and the dynamics around them, it gets heated. So it's interesting to have at least a litmus test and say, okay, have you built it? Is it hosted somewhere? Can I see it? Can I play with it? How many users do you have? And at least constructively push the individuals toward getting that. Not in a shut them down. You're not about nothing because you haven't done that, but invest your skill sets. The sweat equity, the thing that you can produce for virtually free is what you've studied, what you've mastered. Build it. It's okay if it's PHP, even though that's not sexy anymore, right? Just get it working, getting it for the people, and get that feedback. Great stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I would also, I think sometimes we're kind of in this echo chamber of all ideas need to come from me, and I need to be the source of the idea, and I need to be the inventor. I just want to make sure that we also call out that sometimes understanding the idea means that's a fantastic company I should go join, or that group right there is building something special. I should put in a few bucks into it.
Nice. I think we're approaching the 4:30 hour. That's a hard stop for the show.
Yeah, we can do up to 1 hour. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we started at 3:30.
We watched Sean just finish saying actually that's one of I don't want to say a problem, but it's I think I find it very challenging when you have the idea, you want to build this app, for example, or you want to build a company around it, but you don't have a prototype yet, like you guys are talking about. It's like the difference between having the idea on a napkin or a paper napkin, or having a prototype and people can touch and feel it. So how do you separate yourself from that idea and actually bring all the people over to contribute to it, and then to even build that prototype, so you can actually move forward? And because one of the problems I started to have is, like you mentioned PHP, I'm like, nah, don't don't start my stuff with PHP.
Oh
Because
boy.
I love that idea, and I started writing some of the components in Java. And my cousin, he does a C#, and I didn't have that concept of microservices. Like microservices is so popular nowadays. So I'm like, no, I don't want to mix my my little mojo for this and that. My payment system to be written in C#, and I have my user.
Man, it sounds like you're giving yourself a lot of obstacles early. Remember, the
Exactly.
MVP, that prototype, is gonna be thrown away. So you could write it in Pascal. You could crank up Delphi and write it on the desktop, and it works. The database is MS Access. You're using ADO. It works because whatever you have, whatever flows out of you, get that prototype done, because you have your idea. It's been haunting you, and then you have your resources. You're an engineer, so you could code it yourself. However way you do, don't let the fancy stuff stop you. Ugly, just get it working. Or you start relying on these networking skills. How am I going to convince these individuals who could code this better than me, faster than me, to to do it for free because I don't have the money? Or how am I going to convince an individual to give me the money to hire these individuals to do this? Right. So either way, you are in between success and your idea, and you're going to have to give up something. It's just so. I'm telling you about that technology choice thing. Don't let that stop you, man. Nobody looks at the source code of an MVP and decides based on that whether they're going to go for it or not. But you know, it could live on Windows. It's like this only works on Internet Explorer 11. But you know, when you run it, you'll understand though. Anybody else want to chip in on that?
I just want to say hi to everybody. I joined. Hey man, my name is Vladimir, and I joined late. I was watching the stream on YouTube. I'm like, man, this is pretty interesting, and so I hopped in and wanted to participate. Thank you, Shawn, for some of the great points. Thank you, Lionel. And I just wanted to add, as far as ideas, not all ideas should be commercialized. As an engineer, I come up with ideas all the time. You know, a lot of them are just to scratch my curiosity to make sure that I stay on top of my game. But I know, you know, I've been down that road where I think that I'm gonna create something and take it all the way, but you know, life happens, and sometimes it's not something I necessarily want to continue on, and I exit early to make sure that it doesn't become a time suck. But I think it's good to have ideas. I think it's good to play around, but I think one of the things is to identify early whether or not, you know, whether or not that thing should become a product. So that's all I want to add. And I know we're running into the hour mark. I'm not sure how long we're going to go, so I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Vlad. Much appreciated, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to just add one last thing there is, and I know that this is like an engineering focused conversation, but there is a tremendous amount of, to Randall's point earlier, there's a tremendous amount of value in the validation, right, of the idea. And I've seen people validate an idea. Their idea is really nothing more than a business proposal with all of the financials figured out. There's some superpowers that I never really appreciated previously that I'm understanding now, particularly in my new role, where I have to, part of my job is to help to drive the business. And it's really interesting to see folks in our finance team, for example, do these really interesting projections based on market dynamics and really like call out the opportunity. And you could literally understand what growth will look like even if you don't add a single technical feature, right? And I think there's a superpower in that. So I would encourage us to take a more holistic approach and look beyond just the part that we can affect and see like, what is this overall in terms of what the idea is? Because ideas can come, you could have someone who comes to you and says, hey, look, I've got this business proposal and I see a huge market opportunity here. And this is a fantastic opportunity for you to jump in and say, I'd like to partner with you and build this thing.
True. That touches back to the networking. If you were Randall right now to decide one of your ideas is worth going forward, do you know your security person? Do you know your finance person? Do you know your legal? Not that you hired them, but are they already in your network so that it's just a phone call away? Hey man, you know that thing I've been talking about? It's happening. It's real. It looks like funding is going to happen. Let's have a meeting Sunday. At least start getting and building it and walking toward it so that when the opportunity goes knocking, you're not like, let me put my clothes on. No, you're right at the door. Just open it and, you know, ride with it. So
that is such a powerful point. I was having a conversation, with someone the other day, and I was saying, there comes a point where, a lot of times we think we're going to do business with our friends, right? And then eventually what we start to realize as you start moving through your career and become more successful, that the people you do business with end up becoming your friends. So, it becomes really important. The landscape really changes. And it's really important to have networked or to use your farming analogy, Lionel, cultivated, right, a diverse network of people from various disciplines so that you can take advantage of those opportunities when they come.
Definitely. All right, guys. I think we wrapped it up nicely. Thank you, Shawn, for your time. I think you at least gave everybody some interesting directions to go question, things to look at. And we didn't get to really touch on the subject as far as the changing landscape of opportunities, global, tech industry and what's happening there. Maybe we save that from another show, but I feel like the information you gave was aligned towards strengthening everybody's drive forward. So regardless of the weather, regardless of what's going on in the industry, after this talk and after taking some time to meditate on what we've just learned and what we've just absorbed, it puts you in a better position to assess things and look at opportunities. And also, this is a network. So should future ideas and thoughts and questions come out, we have the Slack team. I think, Shawn, we could probably invite you. We'll make you honorary Haitian and add you into the network, because I think it'll be mutually beneficial to keep access to each other and grow the network.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you all for inviting me to this. This is exactly the point of what we talked about earlier, right? It's not a one-way flow. It goes both ways. So this is a huge opportunity for me as well to be able to talk to all of you and hear your ideas and your questions. And this helps me to grow as well. And so any way that I can help to participate, I think this platform is awesome. I love what you guys are doing. Any way that I can help and participate in the future, I'd be happy to do so.
Excellent.
Cool. So thank you, Shawn. Really happy you were here with us. I'm gonna look forward to get some allies, some mentorship, and really put so much more weight on the networking aspect of things. That's been pretty awesome.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay.